Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel. And today I thought I'd talk about the Klitschko brothers. I haven't really talked about them too much on this channel. I've talked more about Wladimir than I have Vitali, I guess. But, today I thought I'd talk about them because obviously there's this whole question or, conversation surrounding who was the better brother between the two, right? And I thought I'd give my thoughts on that. So, me personally, I don't really think either brother was that much better than the other. And the reason for that is because I think both brothers were two different fighters stylistically. And, I know that sounds weird because of the fact that, they're both brothers, right? But, also the fact that Wladimir, I guess in terms of height, he was like 6'6" to 6'7" tall, while Vitali was like 6'7" to 6'8" tall. So, obviously in terms of height, they're also very similar. But, in terms of their styles, I just think they're both different fighters, and I'll get into that now. So we'll start off with Vitali. So Vitali, in my eyes, was the much more durable fighter between the two. He was a lot more durable than Vladimir, and he had a better chin, in my opinion, right? And I think that's the main thing he's known for. I mean, he was known for having this granite chin, right? I mean, this guy, I think he was, labeled as one of the top three heavyweights to have, or top three heavyweight champions to have never gone down in a fight. Apparently, like he's never been knocked down behind Nikolai Valiev, and I think it was George Chuvalo as well. I could be wrong on that, but the point is that Vitali officially had never been knocked down. Although when he did fight Corey Sanders, I did think that knockdown when Vitali went down in the first round, I did think that was a knockdown. Just because like Vitali was getting rocked all over the place, and Corey Sanders did connect with a left hand that kind of went behind Vitali's ear. Right before Vitali went down, but obviously it was rule of slip. But it is what it is. The point is, though, officially, he's never been knocked down, and he's barely been rocked in his career, aside from that fight and maybe the Lennox Lewis fight as well. But even then, like he wasn't, like rocked, like all over the place, right? He was only momentarily stunned in the Lennox Lewis fight. So, in terms of like their durability and their chin, I would say Vitali was better. I also think Vitali was a lot more aggressive than Wladimir. Wladimir was a bit more composed than Vitali, while Vitali wasn't really scared to engage. He was willing to take a shot to give a shot, and he was that type of fighter. He was more intense and more aggressive. He also had a better inside fighting game than Wladimir. He had a fairly good inside fighting game. It wasn't the best, but I would rate it fairly. So yeah, that's about Vitali. But in terms of the younger brother, Wladimir, I would say that Vladimir, technique-wise and ring IQ-wise, was a lot better. I think he was the much better boxer between the two. And, there was sort of a reason why he was more composed than his brother Vitali is because, he stuck behind his jab. He was, he was more just, he would stay behind his boxing ability, right, rather than rely on just his chin or whatever, because Vladimir didn't have as good of a chin, right? So he made up for it in terms of defense and his offense, right? So in terms of their technique and just their boxing ability, I would say Vladimir was a lot better. I also think Vladimir hit harder than his brother Vitali. You know what I mean? I think, and I'm kind of surprised because I've seen some people actually say that Vitali hit harder, and I can kind of see that because of the fact that Vitali had a higher KO percentage rate. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that you hit harder than someone else, right? So in terms of Vladimir, I would say that he punches harder because of the fact that he turned into his punches a bit better, and I also just think he had more natural power than his brother Vitali. So yeah, that's basically how I view both brothers. I see Vitali being the more aggressive and durable fighter, but I see Vladimir being the better boxer and the harder puncher between the two. So, like I said, they're two different styles, and it's best just to rate them for that. Okay. Now the question though is, who was better, right? Who was better? Who was the better brother between the two? Now, that's a tricky question to answer because it depends what you mean, like in what context, right? So, if we're talking about the context of who was the better fighter between the two, then I would say Vitali. I'd say Vitali was a lot better in fight wise, and what I mean by that is like he would actually bring the fight to his opponents, right? He did that in the Lennox Lewis fight. He did it in multiple fights, and it was very rare that he would fight on the back foot and stay composed a lot of the time, right? So in terms of them, in terms of the fighter in them, I would say that yeah, Vitali was better. Now, if we're talking about who was the better boxer between the two, then I would say Wladimir, because Wladimir, like I said, he was better technically. He knew what to do in certain situations. If you tried to clinch him, he would know what to do. If you were trying to press forward onto him, he would know what to do. And, ultimately, I just think he was a lot better technically and had a higher fighting IQ or boxing IQ anyway. So, in terms of, the ability to box, I'd say that Wladimir was a lot better. So, like I said, it depends on what context you mean by, saying which brother was better and all that stuff. So, Vitali was the better fighter, but Wladimir was the better boxer. Now, that being said, I think the more interesting question is who would have won? If they both fought, who would have won? Now, that's a bit of a difficult question to answer because of the fact that it depends at what state in their career. Because both brothers were different fighters at, like in different stages of their career, right? So if we're talking about Wladimir Klitschko fighting Vitali Klitschko when they were both, say, in their late 20s to early 30s, then I say Vitali would have knocked out Wladimir Klitschko. I think, Vitali, that's when he was more in his prime, while Wladimir wasn't a fully developed fighter at that point. And, in terms of that, yeah, I'd say that Vitali definitely would have knocked out Wladimir. And, I think he would have actually destroyed Wladimir in like the first few rounds or even the mid rounds or something like that, right? So, yeah, we're talking about them both being or both fighting at that state in their careers, then I would say Vitali would have knocked him out. Now, if we're talking about both fighters being in their, say, mid 30s to late 30s, then I say Wladimir would have beaten his bigger brother up. I think he would have either won a decision and, a lopsided one, or he would have gotten a late stoppage against Vitali, right? And the reason I say that is because, once Wladimir started to train with Emmanuel Stewart, that's sort of when he was entering his prime because, Stewart was teaching him a lot of the, a lot of boxing fundamentals, right? And that's sort of how he became that, great fighter or that great boxer that he was, right? So, yeah. And in terms of Vitali, I mean, Vitali, when he was fighting, at that point in his career, right? I mean, even though he was winning rounds against the guys he was fighting, you could tell that he was slowing down, right? Like he wasn't sort of as aggressive, he was fighting on the back foot a lot more. And like I said, at that point, he was just more prone to injuries. He was fatiguing more, you know what I mean? He wasn't as motivated. And, that's why I'd say that Wladimir definitely would have won. I don't know if he would have knocked Vitali out or if he would have won a decision. I think the safe bet would be for Wladimir to beat him by decision, but either way, I think Wladimir would have beaten Vitali at that stage in their careers for sure. So, yeah, it depends at what point they were at. Now, I guess the final question is if a prime Vitali Klitschko who was in his late 20s to early 30s fought a prime Wladimir Klitschko who was in his, mid 30s to late 30s, then who would have won? So that's an extremely difficult question to answer because of the fact that, in my opinion, like I said, I don't really put either brother higher than the other. I think, like I said, they're two different styles. And I could honestly see this fight going one of two ways. Either one, Vitali knocks Wladimir out, or two, Wladimir wins a decision. So, that being said, I honestly I don't really know. I don't really know who would have won this fight, because I really could see it going either way. And in my opinion, it's a very 50-50 fight. So that's just sort of how I see it. Now, if you had to say that, okay, well, put your money on it, like if you had to bet this amount of money on a potential fight between the two, then who would you pick? So in that case, if I had to put money on either brother, then I would say Vladimir wins a decision, right? And I know that's the unpopular opinion, but for me, it's just the fact that he was more developed at that point, right? As a boxer, and look, this is a boxing match, right? It's not a street fight. It's none of this, right? And Vitali, even though he had a good chin can only take you so far, right? And Vladimir didn't have as good of a chin, but he made up for it in his defense. Like I said, defensively, he was a much better fighter than Vitali, right? And the way I see this fight going, I could see Vitali maybe having his moments in the fight for sure, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't want to say that it would have been a boring fight, but I could see Vladimir clinching up Vitali a lot of times, and just kind of holding on to him whenever Vitali would get close, and not really give Vitali any room to do anything. But yeah, that's how I'd see that fight going. Regardless, I think Vladimir, he would know what to do. If Vitali was going to press forward onto him, I could see Vladimir countering him with all these big shots, and I could see Vitali. I don't know if he would have gotten beat up, but I just think Vladimir would have edged the decision. Because like I said, he had a better fighting IQ, and he would have known what to do in certain situations. So my pick is a slight edge towards Vladimir Klitschko. But like I said, I mean, this is a very 50-50 fight in my eyes. And I would only edge Vladimir like a 51-49 favorite, because like I said, both fighters, they were different stylistically, right? And I think it's best just to respect them for that and just, see it as, one really wasn't that much better than the other, right? So yeah, that's just how I see it. They were both great fighters, and they both deserve the respect for that. So yeah. Anyway, that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know who you guys think would have won between the two, because I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Because obviously, the majority think Vitali would have won, but there are some like myself who slightly edge it towards Vladimir. So yeah, but I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments for sure. So yeah, that being said, hope you guys have a good day. Take care and peace.